would you like to do a series with Redd Foxx? And I said, Redd Foxx? Who's going to put him on television? Are you nuts?
When Redd Foxx died suddenly of a heart attack on October 11th, 1991, it was a shock to Hollywood. The legendary comedian, famous for his biting humor and unforgettable role as Fred Sanford, was just 68 years old. His death came while filming The Royal Family, a CBS sitcom that was meant to be his big television comeback. The loss hit fans hard, but what stunned them even more was the absence of one man, Demond Wilson, Fox's longtime co-star on Sanford and Son. For years, audiences had watched Fred and Lamont Sanford argue, laugh, and show a grudging love that felt as real as any father-son bond. To see Lamont missing from Fred's real-life farewell was almost unthinkable. The public assumed there had to be a good reason. Maybe Wilson was ill, overseas, or tied up with work. But the truth was far colder. When Sanford and Son ended in 1977, the personal relationship between Redd Foxx and Demond Wilson had already collapsed. What started as a warm, almost familial bond in the early 1970s had slowly eroded, first during Fox's dramatic 1974 walkout over pay and racial discrimination, then through years of tension over money, creative control, and perceived betrayals. Fox believed Wilson hadn't stood by him during his fight with NBC, choosing instead to keep filming while Fox was suspended. Wilson, on the other hand, felt that Fox had changed, that the man who once mentored him had become self-centered, more concerned with his own spotlight than with the people who helped him get there. The final blow, in Wilson's eyes, came when Fox renegotiated a massive pay raise for himself but didn't fight for Wilson to get one too, despite the fact that Wilson had carried the show during Fox's absence. By the closing months of Sanford and Son, the warmth that once existed between Redd Foxx and Demond Wilson was gone. The easy banter, the off-camera teasing, the shared laughs between takes, all of it had evaporated. Now they spoke only when necessary, exchanging words mostly to get through a scene. Their interactions were stripped down to the bare essentials: blocking, dialogue, the occasional nod before the director called action. Once the cameras stopped rolling, each man would retreat to his dressing room, the door closing as firmly as the wall that now stood between them. Crew members noticed the shift immediately. In the early seasons, the set had been filled with energy. Between takes, Fox would crack jokes for the crew, Wilson might share a story from his personal life, and laughter was as common off-screen as it was on. But in the final stretch, the atmosphere was markedly different, quieter, heavier, almost brittle. Some described it as walking on eggshells. Tensions had built up to the point where even small interactions could feel loaded. Makeup artists and camera operators learned to read the room, knowing when to step in and when to keep their distance. The change wasn't just personal, it was professional. By this point, Fox had secured greater creative control over the show, shaping scripts, adjusting pacing, and making executive decisions about the direction of certain episodes. Wilson, meanwhile, often felt sidelined creatively, his input dismissed or overlooked. What had once been a collaboration now felt, to him, like a one-man operation where he was simply another employee. And yet, in front of the camera, their chemistry never seemed to falter. The two could deliver a scene with perfect timing, their comedic rhythms still in sync even if their personal ones were not. To viewers at home, nothing seemed amiss. But for those behind the scenes, the show's final months were a balancing act, keeping the illusion alive while managing the reality of a partnership that had quietly, but completely, fractured. When Sanford and Son finally wrapped, there was no grand goodbye between its stars. No parting words, no promises to keep in touch. Just a final scene, a final take, and then two men walking off in opposite directions, both on set and in life. When the series wrapped in 1977, there was no farewell dinner, no handshake, and certainly no promise to work together again. The curtain came down, and so did their relationship. After Sanford and Son, Redd Foxx wasted no time diving back into his first love, stand-up comedy. His quick wit, sharp tongue, and fearless humor still drew crowds, and he hit the road playing sold-out clubs and theaters. That same year, he launched the Redd Foxx Comedy Hour on ABC, a variety show filled with sketches, celebrity guests, and plenty of the edgy and censored material that had made him a legend before television. But the new show struggled to find its footing and was canceled after just one season. Fox also took on guest roles and appearances, his charm still evident, but his career increasingly marked by financial instability. His spending habits were extravagant, his generosity to friends and strangers alike often draining his bank account. At one point, the IRS seized his Las Vegas home and personal belongings over unpaid taxes, a public humiliation that Foxx later joked about on stage, turning his troubles into punchlines. Meanwhile, Demond Wilson charted a different course. He took on a few acting jobs in the late 70s, including guest spots in TV movies, but his interest in Hollywood was fading fast. By the early 80s, Wilson had all but walked away from the entertainment industry. Seeking a new purpose, he turned toward religion, eventually becoming a full-time minister, a choice that would further distance him from Fox's world of late nights, comedy clubs, and show business excess. Two men who had once shared a stage and made television history were now living in entirely separate universes, and neither showed any sign of looking back. Demond Wilson, on the other hand, turned his back on Hollywood completely. The behind-the-scenes drama of Sanford and Son had left him disillusioned. He found religion, became a devout Christian, and eventually an ordained minister. He preached across the US and abroad, often condemning Hollywood as an evil industry, full of greed, egos, and moral decay. To Wilson, returning to that world or reconnecting with Foxx wasn't just unlikely, it was unthinkable. He had left Hollywood with a clean break, determined never to look back. In interviews, Wilson was blunt about what he saw behind the industry's glamorous facade: greed, betrayal, and moral decay. To him, the entertainment world wasn't a place you could simply dip in and out of. Once you walked away, you stayed away for the sake of your soul. Meanwhile, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, Redd Foxx's career saw flashes of revival. He appeared on talk shows, did stand-up tours that still packed houses, and even headlined in Las Vegas. His name alone could draw a crowd, and his sharp comedic instincts were as quick as ever. But for all the laughter he brought audiences, his personal life remained chaotic. Foxx's generosity was legendary. He often loaned or outright gave money to friends in need, but it came at a price. Combined with his expensive tastes and loose approach to money management, it led to constant financial troubles. At one point, the IRS seized his Las Vegas home and personal belongings, a humiliating blow for a man who had once been one of television's highest-paid stars. Even so, Foxx kept performing. In 1991, he landed what could have been his big TV comeback, a lead role in The Royal Family, a CBS sitcom co-starring Della Reese. The show had strong early buzz, and Foxx seemed poised to remind a new generation why he was a comedy legend. Yet through all of these ups and downs, his friendship with Demond Wilson never rekindled. There were no public reunions, no nostalgic interviews, no surprise appearances together on talk shows. The once inseparable duo of Fred and Lamont existed only in reruns. For fans, it was puzzling. Why wouldn't two men who had made television history find their way back to each other, at least for a moment? But those who knew them best understood. The wounds ran deep, and pride was a powerful barrier. Neither man made the first move, and the silence between them became permanent. By the time Foxx's sudden death came later that same year, the gap between them wasn't just emotional, it was absolute. When Foxx landed The Royal Family in 1991, it felt like the start of a new chapter, a second chance at TV stardom after years of financial troubles, tax battles, and uneven career breaks. The show, co-starring his close friend Della Reese, had all the makings of a hit: a seasoned cast, a strong concept, and Foxx's unmistakable comedic timing. In the first few weeks of filming, Foxx seemed energized. Crew members later recalled that he was in high spirits, cracking jokes between takes and talking about how excited he was to be back in a regular TV role. For fans who had grown up with Sanford and Son, it was thrilling to see him on the verge of another television success. But then, just weeks into production, tragedy struck. On October 11, 1991, while rehearsing a scene, Foxx suddenly collapsed on set. At first, some thought he was joking. After all, Fred Sanford's trademark gag on Sanford and Son was to clutch his chest and cry, "I'm coming, Elizabeth!" But this time, it wasn't comedy. It was real. Foxx had suffered a massive heart attack. He was rushed to Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center, but the damage was too great. Within hours, the man who had made millions laugh for decades was gone at the age of 68. News of his death spread quickly, and the outpouring of grief from fans, colleagues, and fellow comedians was immediate. Hollywood began preparing to say goodbye to one of its most groundbreaking and unapologetic performers. For many, one question lingered: would Demond Wilson be there? To the public, it seemed almost inevitable. The two men had shared 6 years of television history, creating one of the most iconic father-son pairings ever seen on the small screen. Even if there had been tension, surely the weight of the moment, the chance to honor a man who had shaped his career, would bring Wilson to the funeral. But for those who knew the true depth of their estrangement, the answer wasn't so certain. The silence between Foxx and Wilson had lasted nearly 15 years, and neither had ever made a move toward reconciliation. For Wilson, it wasn't simply a matter of showing up to pay respects. It was about whether he could, or even wanted to, cross a line he had held for decades. But Wilson stayed away. Years later, in 2006, he was asked directly on the talk show Talking with T.Y. he hadn't attended Fox's funeral. His answer was short, blunt, and final. "We weren't speaking at the time of his death. I have my reasons." No further explanation. No warm words for his former co-star. No expression of regret. Wilson's absence wasn't about scheduling conflicts or bad timing. It was the culmination of nearly 2 decades of unresolved anger, pride, and deep mistrust. The cracks that had begun in the mid-1970s had hardened into a wall neither man was willing to climb. Foxx had died without reconciliation, and Wilson had lived without seeking it. There had been no phone calls, no quiet meetings, no letters sent through mutual friends. The silence had become part of the relationship, or rather, the lack of one. For Wilson, attending the funeral would have meant publicly acknowledging a bond he no longer felt existed. In his mind, Fred Sanford and Lamont Sanford were television characters, not a reflection of his real-life relationship with Redd Foxx. That bond, once warm, had been broken long ago, and Wilson saw no reason to pretend otherwise, even for the sake of ceremony. When asked in 2006 on the talk show Talking with T.Y. he hadn't attended, his answer was sharp and definitive. "We weren't speaking at the time of his death. I have my reasons." He didn't elaborate, didn't soften the statement with fond memories or words of regret. It was as if the curtain had fallen in 1977 and stayed shut forever. For fans, Wilson's absence was jarring. They had spent years seeing Fred and Lamont's on-screen relationship as genuine, believing there must have been an equally strong friendship off-screen. Many struggled to reconcile the comedy duo they loved with the reality of two men who had parted ways and never looked back. Those inside Hollywood were less surprised. Industry insiders knew the wounds between them ran deep, wounds born from disagreements over loyalty, money, and creative respect. Both men were stubborn, both had their pride, and neither was the type to bend first. In the end, Wilson's absence at Fox's funeral wasn't an oversight. It was a statement, silent but unmistakable, that the chapter they had written together in television history was closed for good. And so, when Redd Foxx was laid to rest, it was without the presence of the man who had stood beside him through 6 seasons of laughs, arguments, and unforgettable television moments. The legacy of Fred and Lamont Sanford would live on, but their real-life story ended in silence. Even in later interviews and retrospectives, Wilson rarely speaks about Foxx. When he does, it's often in passing, choosing his words with surgical precision. He avoids going into detail, avoids telling stories that might rekindle warm memories, and more often than not, doesn't even say Fox's name directly. For longtime fans, it's telling, as if even decades later, the very mention of his former co-star still carried the weight of old wounds. And those wounds were not small scratches. They were deep cuts, made over years of disappointment, mistrust, and bitter silence. Every opportunity for reconciliation, an anniversary special, a reunion talk show appearance, even a simple private phone call, came and went without action. Both men had lived with their version of the story for so long that meeting in the middle might have felt like betraying their own truth. In the end, Demond Wilson didn't attend Redd Fox's funeral because the two men weren't just estranged, they were finished. This wasn't a case of friends who had drifted apart or colleagues who had lost touch. It was a permanent split, a deliberate choice to let the connection die. For fans, it was a bitter pill to swallow. The father and son dynamic of Fred and Lamont Sanford had felt so authentic that many assumed it must have been rooted in a genuine bond. To learn that the relationship had ended so coldly was not just disappointing, it was heartbreaking. It's a reminder that even the most iconic partnerships, The ones that seem untouchable on screen can be destroyed by pride, hurt, and the kind of silence that no amount of time can break. The reruns will always show Fred and Lamont bickering and laughing together, frozen in a world where the love always outweighs the arguments. But in real life, when the cameras stopped rolling, so did the relationship, and neither man ever stepped back into the other's life again.